Just because you don't take insurance doesn't mean your clients can't use it. Mentaya is an out-of-network billing platform that gets clients to get back 70% back on therapy without the therapist lifting a finger. I've checked out their product, and it's truly a game changer. It's what I wish I had in my private pay practice. They handle literally everything, so you can focus on what matters: therapy. Go to practiceofthepractice.com/Mentaya to try it out for free. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/MENTAYA to get started for free. Mentaya is amazing if you have private pay clients that want to bill their insurance. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, bonus episode. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I hope that you are doing amazing today. We are here 2 or 3 times a week helping you build a thriving practice you absolutely love. On the side of thriving, we want you to learn all those things that have to do with business, marketing, whatever word that means, marketing, SEO, all sorts of things that help you with the business side of it. And we also want you to love it. We don't want you to have a business that feels slimy or feels like you're squeezing people into things. No, we want you to just absolutely love what you get to do. I know for myself, when I reflect on Practice of the Practice and what I and the team have built here, I'm so excited. I was just asked on a podcast recently, what's next for you? What do you think you're going to do after Practice the Practice? And I could honestly answer, I don't know what you're talking about. I could just see myself doing this the rest of my life. I enjoy it that much. I get to come up with ideas. I get to see what's happening in the market and try to adjust what we're doing. And things like our 7-figure practice club that we just opened up on December 1st. So you may have heard me talk about this. It's this great group. That's going to be 12 people that are all 7-figure practice owners supporting each other. And we're meeting once a month for 90 minutes, and 3 people will have a 25-minute hot seat. And then the second time we meet is going to be a 60-minute meeting where one of the 12 people does a presentation on something they feel like they're just knocking out of the park, that they're doing really well. And that just helps us all learn from them, but also for them to get the affirmation of, you need to be consulting on this, or that was amazing. Here's some opportunities we see to just continue to level up in the ways that they find things interesting. And then we're going to meet together in person here in Traverse City for 2 days, sometime in the spring. And then we'll be meeting for 2 days at some other location later in the year. So it's going to be this great supportive community. And if you are a 7-figure practice owner, feel free to apply over at practiceofthepractice.com/club for the 7-figure practice club. So it's great to have these kinds of ideas that we say we're hearing from people that were, say, in group practice boss, and they just keep growing and growing. And they say, yeah, we like group practice boss, but we really want to be around other 7-figure practice owners. And so we kept getting this question, what's next? What's for bigger practices? And so this is our first stab at it to bring together the 7-figure practice club. And so when we get to make these businesses that we absolutely love, sure, this is my last thing of the day. I think I had a 5-minute break today, but I'm just as excited to hang out with Melissa today, who's our guest, as I would have been earlier in the day, because I love this work I get to do. And that's what we want to help you do too. Well, today we have another 7-figure practice owner. Melissa Schneider is a double group practice owner and consultant for mega practice planning and scaling. She opened Resolution Counseling Center in Jersey City, New Jersey in 2019, and now has a staff of 60 plus therapists across 3 offices. In 2023, she launched her second practice, Cultivate Therapy, a specialty practice connecting her strongest therapists with the clients they most love to serve. Melissa earned her master's in social work from Columbia University in 2006 and lives in Jersey City with her husband and twin first graders. Welcome to the Practice of Practice podcast, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's great to be here. I'm a big fan of the show, so it's just exciting to be talking with you about 7-figure practices.
Well, I'm a big fan of you too. You've shown up in our membership communities and just been so supportive of other practice owners. You've been a part of Level Up Week panels, and the knowledge you bring with such a large practice. I'm just really excited to have you as part of this series.
Thanks so much.
Well, I want to start with twin first graders. What's that like?
So much better than twin 3 year olds, which is when I started the practices. No, I've
Oh,
been like, love, I always said, I was like, I love infants until they're 12 months old. And then I love 6 years and up. And I was very right, Joe. And so we finally
oh.
arrived, and I have children that don't have tantrums every day. They have interesting ideas about the world. They like are making friends and have just fun things to say. So I'm much more in like my zone as a mom these days.
Oh, yes. It's so fun to just see how kids start thinking so much differently about the world. And like my 9-year-old was about to fall asleep the other night, and their grandfather passed away about a year and a half ago. And so around
Mm,
bedtime, that sometimes comes up.
right.
And she's also been pondering the existence of God recently. And she said to me, "So Grandpa was a Christian, and if I decide I don't believe in God, will I not see Grandpa again?" It's like this little 9-year-old like pondering the
Right.
weight of the
You're like,
universe. I'm like,
exactly.
wow, like
You're
it's
like,
just
that's a
so
big one.
cool. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
let's talk through that. So it was just a very, I don't know. I feel like kids can have such a unique way of just showing us a different world that's been in front of us the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah, they're endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about you launching your practice, and I would love to just hear a little bit of the story of, when you launched it, what that looked like. And, I know we won't hit everything and how you got to 60 people in such a short period of time, but, you launched the practice. Tell us a little bit about that. When did you start hiring clinicians? When did you start really scaling? Yeah, take us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of an interesting story. So before I ever went into even solo practice, I was just like a Wall Street therapist consultant. I was kind of on site at one of the big investment banks. I loved my job. Like I was placed there to kind of start their on site program. I was doing a fantastic job at it. They all love me. I was on like panels with the VP of this and the head of Northeastern banking and just to talk about wellness, and it was great. I'd been there about a year and a half and I hadn't gotten a raise. So I was like, all right, let me pull my boss aside and talk to her about why they should be paying me more. And my boss was like, listen, you're wonderful. You're like one of the best people we have doing this, but we just laid off 1,400 people last week. We can't give you any extra money. And so it was the first time in my career that I was like, why am I working for other people if they think I'm good at what I do, but they don't have anything to share with me, right? So usually I was a big, like, just like led by my heart kind of person. Like, I care about this agency, they have a job, great. This was the first time that I was like, okay, I'm commuting into a city. I have twins at home. I'm paying for every hour that I'm not in the house, so we can have a nanny. What are like the things I could be doing with my degree and profession? And so I made this big spreadsheet, and I was absolutely blown away that a solo practice was like by far the top thing. And I was like, how did I not know this? I should open a solo practice. So I did that in like January of 2019. I like left my job in the city. I was like doing my practice. That was great. By August, like the phone was just ringing off the hook. And I'm like a mom. I don't want to see couples at 10 p.m. I was like, how's Monday at 1? And like, so I was like, I think I need to hire people that can work the weekends and that sort of thing. But sadly, like I can't be a practice owner right now. Like I just had a misconception because in New York, where I had like got my original licensing, there was this like R designation. Like I just thought like being an owner was some future thing that I like didn't have the credentials for. Then I have this mystery conversation with a person that I cannot remember in August of 2019. And they were like, you can own a practice. And I was like, no, I can't. And they were like, yes, you can. All you need is an LCSW. And I was like, what? And then we opened November 1st, 2019. Like just in 2 months, I was like, I'm going to open a group practice. I did spreadsheets. I was like, I think we need 8 people. I'm going to start hiring. I brought in a group of 3. We're going to offer insurance. They're going to be full time. We're going to find the session room. Like it just all like went really fast once I realized I was allowed to open a practice. And so that's how we got started.
Dang. So then as it starts to grow, when did you start to realize you needed to hire assistants and, other clinicians? I think a lot of people that especially haven't been in any of the business world are thinking to themselves like, I don't know how to hire somebody. I don't know how to do that. Like, was that you, or did you have a model that you looked at? What helped you with, really going from solo to group to then really kind of expanding?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I think blissful ignorance is what I would put down. I was like, I can hire people. How hard can it be? I've applied for jobs. Like, I did a terrible job with my first cohort. Like, I didn't call references. I did like one interview. People didn't bring resumes, and I was like, that's fine. They probably forgot. I've learned a lot since then. But I think because I had the confidence that I knew what the numbers would look like when I hired 8 people, like I had an assistant 3 weeks into the practice. I was like, I need help. I'm trying to book 100 clients for these people I hired. So our first assistant started December 4th, so she was like immediately on site and available. And she was really all we needed until we got to our and we kind of launched 2 locations a year and a half later, and that was when we were like, okay, we need more help, administration wise. But just having someone that could like answer phones and book people and deal with insurance, like that was enough from like hire number 1 to like hire number 20 or so.
Wow. Oh, so what were some of those kind of operational things that you had set up that maybe early on you got them going, and now you're like, that was a really good decision?
Oh, that's a good question. So from like day one, we had payroll and bookkeeping. We used Gusto for payroll. I used this thing called Wave Apps for bookkeeping and accounting. Like I just knew I didn't want to get to the end of the year and have that box of receipts people talk about. I should have hired like someone to do our quarterly stuff like a little sooner. We had an end of the year accountant. And then I think I was just a process person. So I liked writing how to's. I liked talking with my admin person and being like, okay, how are we onboarding people? Let's get our 15 steps written down. And so I think the more that we were just on top of that kind of information, like it was easier for her to be efficient. And then when we needed to grow, it was easy just to like slide people into the system we had for like our admin team.
Mm. Now, as you were capturing those systems, what were some of the key things that you captured? It sounds like you were maybe naturally bent towards just documenting right from the beginning. And I think there's a ton of people that they're just surprised someone wants to work for them, let alone stick around, let alone they're thriving. So then they're like, oh, I guess
Right.
I should capture this system. And they're like 3 years into a group practice. What were some of the things that were on that list that you were really capturing to make it easier to really like plan, do, check, adjust, like you're just repeating it all, rinse and repeat to add people?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of like, okay, what do we need to know about insurance? Like, what information should we gather, like on the phone? And this was before we had Simple Practice. I think we switched to that about a year in. So our original EHR didn't do much of the like intake. And so that was a big thing where like, our admin person needed to know like what we needed to know so that there weren't issues with billing and everything was squared up and straight away. And we just had a like growing document of email templates. So like whenever we were like, oh, I've been sending this answer to people more than once, or this is like the type of thing we need to send when we're onboarding someone, like we would just capture that so that it was easy to just update it and change it. And that really worked well in the early days.
Hmm. Now, I know recently you told me that you over a 4 week period of time hired 10 people. Like that, I
Yes,
think
this
so.
fall, right?
Yeah, but what I like about that, and why I want to kind of really deconstruct that is that many people listening would be like, I would love to hire 10 people over the next 10 years, and you did it in
Right.
a month. So first, like, what infrastructure did you have set up, and what numbers were you looking at that helped you really know that it was time to hire 10 people?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, we're skipping a little bit in the middle, but people who are interested in a 7-figure practice have probably got started somewhere. So, when we were making our plan for 2023, we know how many people we can staff at each location that we're renting. And basically, we build models where like each site is a team of 16. So there's like a site director, there's a clinical supervisor, usually 2, and a team manager under them. And then those 4 support a team of 12 full-time therapists. So we have 4 sites, 2 that kind of merge into one building. So we know it's 16 times 4, right? And so we know how many openings we have at any given moment. And so we realized at the beginning of this year, we had 43 employees, and we were like, oh, well, like for us to get full this year, our goal was to get to 64 hires. And so we were trucking along, trying to hire people. And it was just a really tough year to find licensed professionals in Northern New Jersey, like harder than a lot of other seasons where we've been doing recruiting and hiring. And so we were like, I think we had a big summit with our leadership in June, and we realized like, holy cow, especially our more urban office, like it has just been crickets. Like we're wanting to bring in 3 and we've brought in 1. We wanted to bring in 4 and we brought in 1. And so we were like, we need help. And so we got on the mom project. We found someone who could help with recruiting and sourcing. It was the first time we'd paid like someone other than ourselves to like help with recruiting. And so she like got lists of people with the right licenses. She stalked them on LinkedIn. She messaged them. Like, she just like helped us kind of up the numbers of people who were finding the job post. And then we were like trying to catch up basically on hiring for the first half of the year where we hadn't met our goals. And we were like, the whole practice depends on the people being here so they can do sessions, so we can pay for the benefits we've already committed to and that kind of thing. And so it felt like a do or die type of situation. And so we were able to, we hired a lot of people in a short period of time, which put way too much strain on like our admin team. And we have learned from that, and we're going to space it out better next year. Now that we know, we can like kind of turn up the recruiting energies. So I think we learned from that. But yeah, we brought in like 10 people who started between late August and mid September. And I think I checked this morning and we have 32 openings left, like practice wide across the 64 people that we've hired. I was like,
Wow.
wow,
So
that's
so
amazing.
how long does it take you to fill 10 people typically? Like what do you hope and what usually ends up happening in regards to filling them up to what you consider full?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and kind of one of the like key strategies of our practice anyway is that we want to hire full-time people from the start. We want to give them health insurance, we want them to have benefits, we want them to have enough pay that it's a full-time paycheck for them because they're still fee for service. And so we know that if we're going to bring someone in, we want them to have 32 clients by the 6th week, assuming they'll lose some. Like they're supposed to deliver 25 sessions a week, so that helps them plan for cancels and like cushion. And so for us to hire 10 people meant 320 new clients being booked. We usually hire people 5 weeks early. We launch them online so that there's like enough time for their Psych Today page to start generating referrals. People find them on our website, that kind of thing. But I think the trouble was that it was like the end of summer, so it was a little slower of a pipeline than usual. And then there was just also like some other challenges with like an audit from Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is like a painful story we can talk about another day. We're fine. We're almost through it. But it just led to some clients choosing to pause services kind of at like the wrong moment in our little plan. So it took us longer than we expected. We usually like people to arrive and their entire calendar of 32 clients is like already basically booked, or we're working on like week 5 or something. But it just felt like a lot more of a scramble this time around. But like we would just check in with them. We were like, is it all right if you're a few clients short? Do you need more money? Do you need to do some admin work for us? Like, how can we cover you until we have your caseload? But as of this week, like everyone is basically full. So we did it. And I mean, they all came 2 months ago. So I think we just put a lot of pressure on ourselves because this is people's paycheck and we want to make sure we deliver on our side of things.
Yeah, it's people's paycheck, and also it's if those clients aren't coming through, that's money coming out of the business, out of
Exactly,
your
right. And
pocket. So
you're committed when you have employees, right? You're paying health insurance. So we have a 401k match, we do a profit share, they get pay period bonuses. So there's a lot that we like already know is coming out of the bank account every month.
mhm. If you're looking for an awesome payroll solution, look no further than Gusto. We've used them for years here at Practice of the Practice. They keep me organized, we know how much taxes we're paying, and it's all done right, and you get pay stubs that look like any other company. Head on over to gusto.com/Joe to learn all about their payroll solutions. There is no reason that you should be worrying about payroll. Do it right. Head on over to gusto.com/Joe. That's GUSTO.com/Joe. Now, so I'm thinking 320 new clients for those 10 people if we're going to have them be full. How how many clients were already calling like per week or per month that couldn't be served because you didn't have clinicians? Like, were you already having 320 where you knew you had to do no extra marketing, or did you have to kind of do some extra marketing that revved it up to get those people full?
So we didn't really have to do extra marketing. So we were already like close to waitlist status, and we saw our waitlist balloon from like about 400 people to like 1,000. So we could just see that like every day people are joining our waitlist because the handful of openings like Tuesday at 10 with the person in Bloomfield like doesn't work for them, right? So we
Mm.
never got down to having like 0 openings practice wide, but we got down to having like 8 or something where it's like just unlikely that the person calling like that's the fit for them, right? And so we knew the demand was there, but basically the demand is there. It's really recruiting that's the problem. I think we could have 100 therapists and fill them. So it's not really that like because we take insurance and not a lot of people do. We're like a stone's throw away from New York City, there's never really been a demand problem. Like our only marketing is Psych Today pages. So we build one for every hire. I think we had like paused a handful of them, but we were like, let's just turn them all back on because if the clinician you want is full, we have 10 new ones to tell you about. So that was probably the
Yeah.
only change that we made is we like unpaused like 12 of them to turn them back on.
So when you think about profit margin, when you think about all of those different, like the numbers, in taking insurance, like how did you think through that decision in regards to wanting to build a mega group practice compared to all that it takes to build a private pay practice?
Yeah, definitely. So I knew a couple of things up front. I was like, one, I'm not a marketing genius, and so I could see a lot of benefit to insurance driving referrals. I saw it in my own practice when I went from being like just kind of when I was starting, I wasn't in network, and then I started to join one panel, Aetna, because I knew they paid for extra things like after hours and doing an assessment and that kind of thing. So I was like, Aetna's the one for me. And the phone just rang off the hook like every day after that. And so I was like, oh, that makes a difference. You have enough people coming in. The other thing that I thought was really meaningful is that because you can do incident to billing with most of the insurances in New Jersey, I saw a big value to being able to bring in younger clinicians who would be happy to take a lower hourly rate in exchange for supervision and training and support. And then we could really shape people. Like everyone that comes in is like becoming a Gottman couples counselor and like learning, CBT the way we want them to learn it and that kind of thing. Whereas I think if you're bringing in a licensed, fully licensed professional who's like, I don't need to learn anything, I already have my specialty, it can just be harder to get people on board, and the quality is still really variable. We really haven't seen any trend of like fully licensed people being better than the younger clinicians that we hire, and they can work for a little bit less, and so it kind of all worked out on that front.
Mm. Now, what sort of things are in your interview process? So when you're hiring 10 people, walk us through just some of those steps of, you post it out on whether it's LinkedIn or Indeed or wherever you're posting it. Walk us through that hiring process.
Yeah. So it has come a long way, Joe, since the early days when I didn't call references and only had one interview. So we have our first interview we kind of think of as like we want them to understand the job to find out if they're still interested enough to come to the second interview where we will like learn more about their clinical capabilities. So interview number 1 is us asking about their experience. Have they ever seen 25 clients a week? Do they love being a clinician? Do they already know which populations they like or don't like? Are they interested in working full time? We tell them about all the benefits, that kind of thing. And then we ask them. So we say, if you're still interested, you send us an email about that and you send us your references. And then we will invite you to interview number 2 if we want to move forward. So we don't like chase anybody down, right? If they come to the first interview and they're not feeling it, that's the end of it. If they do send us those references, then we send them an estimate on what their health insurance will cost them because we cover most of it. And we send them a like long handout that we call the new hire benefits and compensation sheet. And it just basically shows them like what the average fee for service clinician earns at their level. It's like a 1 page, like long list of all the benefits of working here. And so we want them to come to interview number 2 being like, I want this job. These people are amazing. Like, get out of my way, other contenders. And then interview number 2, we ask them to come prepared to talk us through 2 case scenarios, which we send them ahead of time because we're not as interested in what you can do like on the fly. We're more interested in what kind of planning you would put into a question. So we're looking for people that bring folders, that have 2 pages of notes, that have made a chart, like that have gone to the DSM to like make a great treatment plan. And that has helped us tremendously. Like we didn't used to do that part of it. And now, like, even if they're not, they might be like nervous in the interview. But once they're like, oh my gosh, okay, so this teen client, like, I just had so many questions. Like, I made this whole thing. I did this genogram. I think they need to do that. Like, you can just see that they're like, that they love being a clinician. And so that's really what we're looking for. We're looking for people that want to be a full time therapist, have a reason to think they'd be good at that and that they would like it, and that we can provide like a really robust job for them, as opposed to practices that might offer like part time or just offer to start a little more slowly. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I think it's taken a while for us to be like, oh, we're the full time place. That's our identity. That's what we're excited about. We want to give you the 401k and the everything. But not everyone wants to see 25 clients a week. We all know that, right? We're looking for the people that love that.
Yeah. Now, when you say fee for service, are you doing a percentage of what comes in or just like a flat fee per session? Or like tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we do a flat fee just because we don't want our therapist to have a different paycheck if we're having some issue with like our, EFT from Horizon or something like that. Every year there's like drama with one panel or another and some holdup in claims. And so we were like, we just don't want our therapist to feel stressed about any of that. And so they have a set rate. That way it's a lot easier to talk about like giving them a raise and being able to look at what that's going to do for them in the next year. And so they get that, but then they get like a lot of other stuff. So there's, their fee for service rate is maybe like 85% of their comp. And then there's like a lot of other stuff. They can get different kinds of bonuses. They get a profit share. They have a 401k match. We cover a lot of insurance. And so we kind of show them all of that too.
Mm. Now, when you think about just like how you help people understand how to be successful there, what are the expectations you have for the new clinicians, and what are things that your team takes on?
Yeah, it's a good question. So they basically usually don't need to do anything except like come to trainings, come to scheduled meetings, and then show up for sessions. So they're not doing any of the onboarding or insurance checking. They don't collect any payments. Like they really just get to be a clinician, which is what we found most of them want. And then on our side, we have like a 3 month checklist that we give them on their first day. That's kind of like, these are all the different trainings you'll complete. You'll see your caseload grow in these ways. You'll want to keep up with your treatment plans, but we've just learned over time that like providing lots of structure so that people are just able to like easily step over each of those hurdles instead of someone being like mad 3 months later that they didn't do something that they didn't really quite know about. And so we've just tried to be like great communicators and just have their manager be really on top of kind of those early weeks because they're usually like eager to please at that point, right? They haven't done anything wrong. No one's upset with them. They're just trying to learn their job. And so we just have a really clear kind of like your first 3 months at RCC experience that we walk them through.
Mm. Well, the last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I guess I would want them to know that like a 7-figure practice sounds like this crazy thing, but it's really not. When you sit down and do numbers with a full-time staff, it's like 6 or 7 hires, right? And when people hear that, they're like, oh, 6 or 7 hires doesn't sound crazy. We could all go to lunch, right? Um, Even if you wanted to grow to a point where you might take home like a 250,000 a year for yourself, like in your own profit share, that might be like 12 clinicians who are full time. And so again, it's not like as crazy as it sounds, as long as you feel comfortable being a boss and you feel comfortable like establishing those systems. It's really not like you don't have to have 70 staff, right? Like this is like a bigger than usual big practice, I would say. But I think it's pretty reasonable for people to have a team of 6 to 12 and to hire them and sustain them and build a culture that everyone's happy with. And I think it's pretty doable. So if you feel like inclined to it and you know you're a good boss and manager, then I really think you should like sit down with a spreadsheet, do the numbers, and decide if you want to go for that.
Hmm. So awesome. If people want to connect with you, what's the best place to send them?
Yeah, so I would say you can go. You can really just email me. So I would find me at Cultivate Therapy, which is our new and kind of more specialized group. So that's Melissa at cultivatetherapyteam.com. I do consulting with folks that want to scale a group practice that they already have. I'd be happy to talk with you about that. I'm also happy just to like meet and get coffee if you're local. We always love to cross refer and just network. So feel free to reach out.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was a pleasure.
You know, what I love about talking to these 7-figure practice owners is how much they do demystify that idea of a 7-figure practice. That it's hiring people, it's growing it, it's getting them credentialed. There's so many different ways that different people have talked about this. Christy, the one that kicked off this series, talked about what you could do now to position yourself for a 7-figure practice. We had Elizabeth talk about how you don't have to specialize. We had Sorbel talk about building your leadership team. Kaylee talking about a 6,000 square foot wellness space she's building on 40 acres. I mean, it's really cool to see these folks that over the last 5 years or so have gone from starting a practice to having over 7 figures. It shows how when you've got the right steps. You surround yourself with the right people that you can really get to that next level. And that really is what the Seven Figure Practice Club is all about, to help seven-figure practice owners to get to that next level, to become 8 figures, to grow, to expand, to have that support. It's awesome. I think everyone should have a consultant to get to that next level, to give you that direct feedback. That's so important. But also being in community with people that are at your same phase is so important, to normalize those things that are happening, to say, yeah, I'm dealing with that too, or to say, no, that's crazy, you need to work on that. To have other people that you just know that they're at the same level as you can be so helpful. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and apply over at practiceofthepractice.com/club. We're going to have that application open until the end of September. No, what am I thinking? January, leave that in. We all screw up. End of January. My mind is apparently a little more fried than I thought. Glad I'm wrapping up the day. So end of January is when the Seven Figure Practice Club is going to. Also, we couldn't do this show without our amazing sponsors. Gusto is our sponsor. Gusto is who we use for payroll. If you're scaling your practice, Gusto is an amazing solution. Gusto.com/Joe. You can get some extra free time through Gusto to try them out. They help with figuring out where do the taxes go, how do we pull it all out, how do we make sure that we have the right pay stubs, all that HR stuff that I honestly don't want to have to learn. So gusto.com/Joe is the best place for you to go for that. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.